But first, let's talk about crazy Ed Miliband and his mad company, GB Energy. One headline at the weekend had it that GB Energy, a company that no one can work out what it is supposed to be, is sliding into increasing irrelevance thanks to £8 billion worth of taxpayers' money being invested and nobody at this organisation actually able to explain what it is that they are for, what it is that GB Energy is for. Let's talk to the environment editor, writer, author at The Daily Sceptic, Chris Morrison. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Kevin.
It's this usual question. We've discussed this before, but I read a big piece in The Telegraph, which was over the weekend, saying that GB Energy, now provided with £8.3 billion worth of taxpayers' money, is still unable to actually explain what it's for, what it is going to do. As of the beginning of this month, incredibly, having been given £8.3 billion of taxpayers' money, this operation was beset by such paucity. It only has a handful of staff. It's got a temporary chief executive. And as of the beginning of this month, so not that long ago, I don't know what the situation is now, it didn't even have a bank account. So, Chris, what is GB Energy for?
Well, I'm afraid I can't help you, Kevin. Perhaps you ought to conclude the interview here. I'm no use to you at all. Well, it's called GB No Energy, as far as I can see. I mean, to be sort of serious, I think that it was basically a vast subsidy bung fund that Miliband wanted to push, or, these sorts of sums of money to things that nobody in the free market would do. So they talked about hydrogen storage, which is a really silly idea. The damn stuff is explosive and you just can't transport it around, and it costs more to produce practically than you get out of it. And then we've got battery storage, which is another complete dud. It gives you about 3 minutes of power when the dreaded Dumflau comes in, which, as I said before, means no frigging wind for 2 weeks in the middle of winter. And so we have all these sort of carbon capture, of course. Don't forget
carbon capture. Yep.
Pitiful amounts of carbon dioxide are somehow stored for eternity in the depths of the ocean, and along with 22 billion quid of our money. So I don't think anybody can really work out what this thing does. I think they come up with one thing, isn't it? They put in solar panels on schools.
Roofs. That's right, schools, which isn't an investment. That's just spending money, isn't it?
Yes,
Ed Miliband's depiction of this organisation, this company, is that somehow or other it will be a kind of gold mine for the British economy. I don't see anything there. But interestingly, over the past couple of weeks, its name has been changed from GB Energy to GB Energy Nuclear. Yeah. And this involves apparently £2.5 billion worth of the organisation's £8.3 billion budget being handed to Great British Nuclear. I mean, the organisations, the different sort of outfits seem to proliferate all over the place. But apparently this is something to do with Ed not being very happy insofar as Rachel Reeves has taken a couple of billion off him to hand to a nuclear operation with a view to setting up nuclear power stations, which will take 10, 15 years to build. Meanwhile, on they plough with Great British Energy Nuclear still being unable to define what it is. Apparently he's going to write a letter to the Prime Minister within the next couple of months, really laying out exactly what GB Energy, not GB News, GB Energy Nuclear will be doing. But it's a bit ridiculous that he's got, 8.5 or 6.5 billion pounds worth of our money, and nobody knows what this company is.
Well, what they've done with the energy thing is the Treasury has shaved off £2.5 billion into a company that will look at these small reactors. These idea that we're going to have these small reactors on the end of your high street, Well, we'll see if we do that. And the Treasury has seen it can shave 2.5 million off. I can't imagine Miliband's very happy about that because they're actually two separate organisations and presumably two head offices and two bank accounts, even if they're lucky, So that's what they did there. The fact is that we're talking about 8 billion quid, which is a vast amount of money to spaff up the wall on all this nonsense.
Yeah.
But in the great scheme of things, if you want to go to net zero, you're talking about trillions. You're talking about, I was reading the work of Professor Michael Kelly, emeritus professor at Cambridge, an engineer, who talks about it would cost £1.4 trillion just to upgrade the electricity grid, which we're having to do. If you want to go fully to electricity for heating, transport, everything else, that's what it will cost. There simply aren't enough transformers, cables, copper, you name it, in the world to do this. Certainly not if everybody is doing it at the same time. And the amounts of money involved, the delays, the fact that we don't have the engineers to do it, it's all adding up in people who presumably are sentient beings in the cabinet or the people who run this country. It's all adding up to just a complete and utter, catastrophe. The thing simply cannot work. It will impoverish us. It will drive us back to a stone age.
Yeah.
And so as I say, the 8 billion is just sort of virtue signaling. It'll go to subsidies for sort of silly things, as I said. But the real issue is I think you're starting to see the collapse of net zero. I saw Ben Habib on a talk radio show recently on the evil. It is evil in its concept, in its idea that you can take Britain back to a former time, a lack of consumerism, a lack of goods. You can control people, you can control their diet, you can control their spending, you can control everything. And this maybe is what sort of floats Miliband's neo-Marxist boat, but it doesn't float many other people, or it shouldn't do.
No, exactly right. They say so. They're going to their permanent office. They've only got a handful of staff at the moment, as I say, including a temporary chief executive, which is a bit odd. But they're looking for a permanent office in Aberdeen that they say will house up to 200 staff. I seem to remember that when GB Energy was announced, it was going to provide jobs for thousands of people who are currently working in the traditional energy field. So they're all going to switch to GB Energy. But now we're talking about potentially 200 people in an office they haven't found, doing something that we know not what. All a bit odd.
And why is it in Aberdeen? I mean, the only reason it's in Aberdeen is because they're destroying the oil and gas business up there, and so they want to try and put something back in its place. Yes, the whole thing is crazy.
It's Ed Miliband, Chris. It's Ed Miliband. Chris, excellent to talk to you. We didn't get to the bottom of it, but in all honesty, I didn't expect that we would. But always good to talk to you. Chris Morrison, Environment Editor at the Daily Sceptic there.